Welcome and good afternoon to you all. It's with great pleasure and enthusiasm that I extend a warm welcome to each of you to this exclusive free webinar on Artificial Intelligence Management System, proudly organized by Ceycert Private Limited. This session has been thoughtfully crafted to provide you with advanced knowledge and practical insights into implementing ISO 42001-2023, the internationally recognized standard for artificial intelligence management system. Our goal is to explore how AIMS can revolutionize organizational processes by promoting transparency, accountability, and ethical governance in artificial intelligence applications. Together, we aim to empower industries to adopt innovative AI solutions while ensuring compliance with the global standards, mitigating risk, and fostering a culture of trust and reliability. We are delighted to have such a dynamic and diverse group of participants and distinguished professionals with us today. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to fostering a culture of ethical AI governance, proactive risk management, and achieving excellence in artificial intelligence management system. This collaborative effort emphasizes the significance of establishing robust frameworks and that prioritize transparency, accountability, and fairness in AIA applications while enhancing organizational performance. Together, we aim to integrate AIMS into the core of operational processes, drive continuous improvement, and contribute to the shared vision of responsible, safe, and resilient AI systems across all industries. Before we dive into today's enriching discussion, I would like to share a few housekeeping guidelines to ensure a smooth and productive experience for everyone. First, please keep your microphones muted unless you are invited to speak. For any questions or clarifications, we encourage you to use the Zoom chat box for written queries. If you prefer to ask your questions verbally, please feel free to unmute yourself when prompted during the session. To foster a professional and interactive environment, kindly update your Zoom display name to include your personal name and the organization you represent. A sample format is provided in the Zoom chat for your reference. If you experience any technical difficulties or require assistance at any point during the webinar, feel free to reach out to the CSET support team. Our contact details are readily available in the Zoom chat box, and we are here to ensure your participation is as seamless as possible. Now, let's move into the next segment of our program. I am thrilled to take this opportunity to share valuable insights into CSET certification process, including artificial intelligence management systems and how it aligns with fostering a culture of responsible AI governance, ethical decision making, and continuous improvement across diverse industries. In addition to this, I will provide an overview of other certification schemes we proudly offer, each designed to empower organizations in adopting global best practices and achieving internationally recognized standards in their respective fields. Let us explore how CSET partners with organizations like US to implement and maintain ISO 42001-2023 certifications for artificial intelligence management system, ensuring compliance, fostering ethical AI governance, and driving operational excellence. By embedding AI governance principles at the core of business processes, we not only ensure the ethical deployment and accountability of AI systems, but also enhance organizational resilience, innovation, and reputation in an increasingly competitive and AI conscious marketplace. At Ceycert, we take pride in being a rapidly growing, globally recognized, and directly accredited certification by the Sri Lanka Accreditation Board, delivering reliable, efficient, and cost-effective certification services with a focus on timely service delivery from application to final certification. Driven by a commitment to excellence and precision, we offer tailored certification solutions across multiple schemes, including AIMS, to help organizations enhance operational efficiency, ensure ethical AI governance, and foster a culture of continuous improvement. Our approach is designed to empower businesses to align with the ISO 42001 2023 standard, ensuring compliance with global best practices for artificial intelligence management systems while fostering responsible innovation. By partnering with Ceycert, you align with a trusted team dedicated to your success, delivering globally credible and locally impactful certifications that elevate standards, enhance reputations, and open doors to new market opportunities. At Ceycert, we are proud to offer a comprehensive suite of internationally recognized certification services designed to empower organizations with excellence and credibility. Our expertise spans management system certification under the ISO 17021, including FSMS, QMS, EMS, ISMS, PCMS, PIMS, AIMS, HACCP, and OSHAs, as well as product certifications under ISO 17065, such as SL Organic and GMP for cosmetics. What sets us apart is our direct accreditation from Sri Lanka Accreditation Board is a signatory to the AIFMLA, ensuring that every certification we issue is backed by global recognition and trust. Ceycert is proud to be the first direct accredited national established certification body offering ISO 27001 2022 ISM certification in Sri Lanka. Receiving accreditation from Sri Lanka Accreditation Board, at Ceycert, we don't just certify, we elevate standards and open doors to worldwide opportunities. Let me walk you through Ceycert's certification process. Once we receive an inquiry, we promptly acknowledge it and provide a tailored quotation or proposal. Upon approval, we conduct an adequacy audit, also known as a desktop audit. Following this, we proceed with the initial audit, which includes both stage 1 and stage 2 audits. The findings from these audits are reviewed by an independent certification committee. Then with their approval, we can issue the certification and then come to the recertification. After the recertification audit, you can renew your certification and continue the certification cycle with Ceycert. Embrace this opportunity to elevate your organization's safety and performance. Connect with us today to begin your certification journey with a trusted partner dedicated to your success. Stay engaged with us through our social media platforms and take the first step toward building a safer, more resilient, and thriving future of your organization. Together, let's pave the way for excellence. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce today's resource person, Mr. Muktesh Murthy, a distinguished leader in project management and a respected professional in marketing and information systems. With an MBA in marketing and information system, he is also a certified project management professional and an expert in ISO standards for information systems and data privacy. Murthy has held leadership roles, including president of AP and member of PMI International Standard Appeals Committee since 2022. A passionate educator, he delivers over 800 hours of training annually, shaping the careers of over 1,000 participants. With vast experience and a global impact, we are privileged to have him here today. Let's begin the session. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Muktesh Murthy to share his expertise and guide us through this training program. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Navangi. Thank you for all the. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much for the introduction and all the best to Ceycert for all your certifications. Very nice to see that you have got a large bouquet of certifications that you do hold and you are supporting uh, in Sri Lanka. So all the best in that. So this certificate, this training that I am giving you is basically to give you an overview of what the new standard of 42001 is all about. So it came out sometime last year, and I got certified in April last year. And since then, I've done close to around only in the AI space. I've done close to around 10 trainings, and I've done over 200 plus people who have been trained. And so this is an overview batch of what AI MS is all about. It generally takes me 2 days, and I'm doing a dedicated training on Saturday and Sunday for a training batch. So it is a 2 day course that I will try to concise in around 3.5 hours. So you'll have to excuse me for some of the pieces that I might just rush through, but I'll give you some of the broad brush of what the artificial intelligence management system is all about. And like I think Novangi had suggested, you might want to put it in chat because I will be looking at my deck and I may not be in a position to really be able to look at your questions. So maybe at the end, I will be able to check that out. Can you confirm that you are able to see my screen, guys?
We can see your screen, sir.
Excellent. So this is a webinar on AIMS, and it is on the ISO 42001 2023 version, which is also the first version of artificial intelligence management system. And this is something that I will also try to show you how the standard looks. And that's something that you may want to procure. And during the course of this journey, I'll give you a little brief about the AI fundamentals. I'll talk a little bit about the typical AI system lifecycle. What does it consist of? Some of the components of AI, the types of AI, principles of AI, and then what is the expectation of you as an AI practitioner? Are you a developer? Are you a service provider or are you a user? It's very important because when we come in for any of the other certifications, whether it is for 27001 or it is 22301, this particular question is not asked. And we recently, one of our colleagues did an AI audit, and you have to define as per the standard whether you're a developer or are you a service provider or are you a user for whom you are getting yourself certified. We'll also talk about the introduction of AIMS, and we'll talk about some of the clauses. We'll talk about the controls that are required from an AIMS standpoint, and then leave you with a Q&A. So this is going to be the broad brush of what the next 2.5 hours is to store with you. So we will cover the understanding of AI. We will look at where is AI being used, what are the different levels of AI that is presently in the system. A slight discussion on the difference between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. Some of you may have heard of these terms, but I'm only going to give you a peripheral view of what AI is about, guys, because this is a very, very vast topic, and I'm sure a lot of us have our own opinion on what AI is. So, what is AI? So, according to a lot of people, at least in the modern era, there is a gentleman called John McCarthy who is claimed to be the father of AI. So he has defined AI as a intelligence of machines or software as opposed to the intelligence of other human living beings, primarily humans. So basically what John McCarthy is stating is that AI is all about trying to build or trying to get intelligence among machines to mimic humans. And that is what is the hot topic today. A lot of companies are moving into this era, trying to get a lot of products, a lot of services, which are presently which we are all facing at certain points in time. So this is something which is really, really a hot topic today. And according to Wikipedia, it is a field of study of computer science that develops and studies intelligent machines. So machines which are intelligent, which is supposed to grow and supposed to improve on a regular basis is one of the nuances of AI. Where is it being used? We have seen self-driving cars. I'm sure all of us have seen it in some time, somewhere or the other, or at least heard of them. I was in San Francisco last month, and we have cabs which have now been, which are self-driving cars. We have Teslas which have got self-driving facilities. Some of our Indian automobiles also have ADAS, which is also used for uh, driving cars with the self-driving features. We have drones which are being used for shots which you never thought was possible. A lot of medical devices today are also using AI. We have had recently a doctor who did an entire operation, or at least it was being monitored by by him, where an entire a robot did the entire operations on his side. So we have a lot of devices which are now being used in the AI space, in the medical space. And in one of my trainings, I had an entire team of almost 12 people from one company, from a medical company, who wanted to get themselves trained on the AI front. Creative writing, I'm sure all of us have used Chat GPT at some point or the other to try and get some work done. So there's a lot of creative writing, whether it is designing your course content, a lot of resume writing that we do. So this is being very heavily used, at least in our spaces, as we see. We also see AI being used. We have seen robots which are now being newscasters. We have seen AI generated images which are now trying to read the news. So this is also something which is really picking up. And thanks to the COVID issues that happened, there's a lot of home automation that has come into play in the AI space. Thanks to AI, we are seeing the vacuum cleaners, which are now cleaning of the houses, which are also called Roombas, which are now used for home automations. We see lights which are voice activated. We see cameras which are voice activated or sound activated. So I also, in my own house, I have lights which come on, which is motion censored. We have IoT devices which are being used at homes. So there's a large amount of programming which is meant to simulate, or which is meant to mimic human beings, and AI is come to stay. It is just that I'm going to come a little later in the game on something which is called system impact. There is a huge amount of impact that this brings to the table. So you have to be very, very careful on what is the extent of AI that you wish to bring and which you wish to inculcate. There's a separate dedicated standard on AI. Close to almost 130 use cases are there, which I will show in the following slides, and in the domains that are there. So there is a standard called the 24030, which is an allied standard for AI, which was released in 2024. And some of the domains that are there is in the following slides. So you will notice here, there are the numbers in the bracket are the number of use cases in each of these areas. So you will notice that in AI, you have AI cases which are there in the areas of agriculture, digital marketing, education, fintech, home service automations, information communication technology, which is ICT, your logistics, maintenance support. Manufacturing has the highest numbers, almost 22 cases as there in that area. Media, entertainment, mobility, and we also have areas like public sector, retail, security. When I say security, this is basically data security, social infrastructure, transport, work life, and others. So there is a dedicated standard only to let you know what are the use cases which are already prevalent. But please note, this is only a guidance. At the end of the day, there are many more cases where AI has been used or can be used. So having said that, let us get down to try and there's a very, very fundamental question that keeps coming up in everyday's life. Is AI a product or is it a feature? So I want you to give me around 6 or 7 minutes of your time This is a very interesting video that I want you to have a look. And if you can just spare that time and let me know, um, if you are able to hear this, guys. Can you hear the sound? Any of you? Guys, can you confirm you are able to hear this?
No, no audio.
Not sure how to connect this, but let me just check.
The way I think about it.
What about now? It also has got subtitles, so I guess you can just have a look. It's got subtitles here. So I strongly suggest that you just have a look and let me know.
So hard for me. That's the so hard. Great. But so suddenly it's just a feature inside of these large language models. A product. It's excessive all the features and all the other
with an AI, we got the Rabbit R1, another device that promised to be like this physical embodiment of an assistant you have everywhere. Now, both these devices were bad and they didn't work very well, but let's say they did. Let's say they actually worked well and were fine. That would be AI as a product. And you could even consider like going to the ChatGPT website and using it there as AI as a product. But then fast forward now to just a few months later, and we just had Apple's WWDC, and we also just had Google I/O, and very different approach. Like, look what happened with Apple. Just like clockwork, they went through and systematically added all these AI features sprinkled throughout a bunch of its operating systems. So for example, inside of any app with the ability to write text, you now have these writing tools that pop up that are powered by these new language models that can help you summarize or proofread or change the tone or style of your writing. And then there's also a new Siri, powered by these language models again, so it can hold conversations better and understand context better and use a semantic index to parse info about various files and things on your device and bring them into Siri's understanding. You can literally generate images as a feature on your device. You can generate emojis. The list goes on. But the point is, it's clear. Okay, so I was listening to the Wired podcast this morning, and they said something that really nailed the way I think about a lot of emerging technologies, especially AI. What they said was WWDC, which we just had from Apple, basically proved that AI is a feature, not a product. And this hit so hard for me because that's the exact question that we've been asking ourselves for so long here about new stuff. Is it a feature or a product? So I'll give you an example. Do you remember Clubhouse? We've talked about this before, but Clubhouse, back in the 2020s, like the pandemic era, it was this meteoric rise to success. There was this platform that was just live audio stage events that would disappear after they were over. And that's kind of all it was. It was super simple. But with everybody sitting at home, it blew up in popularity. It skyrockets to the top of the App Store. Everyone starts using it. It had major interviews happen on it. Major new weekly shows were created on it. There were huge famous people participating in Clubhouses regularly. But fast forward literally 1 year, maybe 2, and suddenly Spotify had built this feature into their app. Discord had built the feature into their app. They built stages. Slack had built it into their app. Even Twitter had built it into their app. They've got spaces now. And so suddenly it was just a feature inside of these larger apps. So the question became, is Clubhouse, this huge thing that came out of nowhere, is this a product or is it just a feature? And it turned out the success of all of the features and all the other apps that built it in meant that Clubhouse would just die. And a lot of the other ones eventually ended up dying. I think we still have Twitter Spaces, but generally it just became a feature. And there are actually many examples of these, which is why the product versus feature question still keeps coming up over and over again. So now the newest question is AI a product or a feature? Because we got to see what it looked like as a standalone product. Like we just had in 2024, we had the Humane AI pin, which was a dedicated piece of hardware specifically for engaging with an AI. We got the Rabbit R1, another device that promised to be like this physical embodiment of an assistant you have everywhere. Now, both these devices were bad and they didn't work very well, but let's say they did. Let's say they actually worked well and were fine. That would be AI as a product. And you could even consider like going to the ChatGPT website and using it there as AI as a product. But then fast forward now to just a few months later, and we just had Apple's WWDC, and we also just had Google I/O, and very different approach. Like, look what happened with Apple. Just like clockwork, they went through and systematically added all these AI features sprinkled throughout a bunch of its operating systems. So for example, inside of any app with the ability to write text, you now have these writing tools that pop up that are powered by these new language models that can help you summarize or proofread or change the tone or style of your writing. And then there's also a new Siri, powered by these language models again, so it can hold conversations better and understand context better and use a semantic index to parse info about various files and things on your device and bring them into Siri's understanding. You can literally generate images as a feature on your device. You can generate emojis. The list goes on. But the point is, it's clearly a very different way of thinking about AI for the consumer, where it's just one of the features built into the thing that you use. Now, I realize this isn't a perfect analogy. I think probably the biggest flaw being that, when they integrated these features, like when Slack, when Twitter built Spaces, when they built these features, they didn't integrate Clubhouse into those bigger websites. They actually just took the idea of what Clubhouse is, which is just a live audio event on stage, and they built it themselves into their own apps. So Clubhouse was left to die. But in this specific case with Apple, it's actually a combination of two things. It's them building a bunch of their own models to do a lot of these things on device, but then also them literally building a ChatGPT wrapper into a lot of their OS. So ChatGPT actually gets more users this way. So I thought this was fun to think about. Now, there is no answer yet as far as, is AI actually a feature or a product? Which one will win, which one will lose, we don't know. But I think if history is any indication, I do think that more people in the long run are going to end up using this AI stuff as a feature more than going to like a standalone thing. Like, I was looking back for other examples of this, and I honestly found it really hard to find any examples of the other way around happening, where the individual product becomes far more successful than the same idea being baked as a feature into something larger. Like, I think TikTok is maybe the best example of this opposite version, where TikTok is it's a vertical video carousel with an algorithm that learns really quickly what video you want to see next, right? That's what TikTok is. Like we've seen Instagram Reels develop that exact same thing. Now it's a huge feature for them. Same thing with YouTube Shorts. We've got all of YouTube, but inside of YouTube is this vertically scrolling carousel with an algorithm. But I still think today we would say TikTok is the most popular version of that idea. So the standalone version is winning currently over it being built in as a feature. And maybe Snapchat is another one, kinda. Like Snapchat Stories was one of the biggest features in Snapchat, and then that kind of got ripped into being a feature everywhere else. Like everyone has stories, but Snapchat by itself is doing well. But anyway, the question is, do you have to get all the way to the level of Snapchat or TikTok in order to be successful as a standalone product to defeat the fact that your thing could just become a feature somewhere? But yeah, that is now the question with AI. It just struck me as such a difference in approach between the product and the feature version of it. And it also struck me that, yeah, it feels like Rabbit and Humane were kind of doomed from the start, because there's no way they would also develop all the other benefits of the big things, those being smartphones. But also, one more quick thing I wanted to highlight that I don't think got as much attention as it maybe deserved, which is all of these models that we've been talking about with WWDC, all of the models under the umbrella of Apple Intelligence, the diffusion model, the image generation model, the language models, are all built by Apple. Like there was a whole moment on Twitter with a lot of confusion over just how integrated ChatGPT is into iOS. I think it's actually not really that integrated at all. So Apple had to go through the work of obviously making all these models, but also training them all. And so if we've asked Apple about this. They've had to go through finding publicly available data and licensing and doing that whole dance and spending the millions and millions of dollars required to make these models work. So that is a really higher barrier to entry, but it's only the once in a while that the request is complex enough or deals with enough real world data, which isn't in Apple's training, that it actually asks, okay, can I go out to ChatGPT? And it asks every single time, which feels about as unintegrated as it gets. But generally, I think this is going to be something that's really hard for other companies, for any new companies to pull off. This might be the last big set of models we get to see. So unless you're Apple or Google or Microsoft or OpenAI or any of the other massive ones that are safe because they'll get integrated now, you probably don't have much of a shot. But either way, this has been really interesting to think about. AI, is it a product or a feature? Can it be both, or does it have to be one or the other and one wins and the other loses? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. We'll hang out there. Either way, thanks for watching.
So there we were. I think we come back to so guys, we are back, and that was an interesting slide. I just wanted you guys to understand that you guys can hear me now, right?
Yes, sir,
Hello? Yeah, you can. Okay. So it was an interesting slide because I wanted all of you to understand that, there is no single source of truth on what is AI all about. So I'm sure all of us have our own opinions, and maybe I've confused you more than you were earlier. So this job is not to try and convince you whether it's a product or it's a service or it's a feature. It's basically for you to try and understand what is your role to play in this area, for you to understand AI and for you to understand the standard. So there is some history behind AI. So like I said earlier, 1950 was the first time that there was a book written called the Computer Machinery and Intelligence, which was proposed to test machine intelligence, called the imitation game. You have certain game which was created in 1952. In 55, there was a workshop. 1955, there was a workshop on AI, the first workshop ever used for artificial intelligence. And then there are different stages. You had the birth sometime in 1950 in the modern era. I'm not going to go back because in a lot of our religious histories, we have had cases where other machines were created or chariots flew. I'm not going to get there, but in the modern era, it is considered that AI was created sometime in 1950s. Then you had a stage of maturity, right from 1958 to around 66, where there were a lot of different activities like the Lisp, the acronym for Lisp processing, a programming language was created. There was a speech about how to convert chess, which was being done in 1959, and the first robot was created by General Motors in 61, and so on and so forth. I'll give this deck to you guys later for you to have a look. You can consume this. And then we also had a stage where you had a mathematician who gave a report underlying the use of funding for AI, which went on. And then the first association of AI, advancement of AI, was created in 79. So you had a maturity phase, and then you had a boom. And this boom happened from 80 to almost 87, where you had a huge amount of traffic that was created in the AI space. And then, like every activity that takes place, there is always a lull period that comes up, guys. And this is something that you need to understand. It is also called a winter. In any area, whether we call it blockchain, whether we look at uh, data science, there is a term called winter, which is where there is a slump on what is really happening. So in the 1950s, we had the birth of AI, we had the maturity. In the 60s, we had the boom, which happened. And then for a subtle period of around 87 to 88, 89, there was a slump. And that slump is called the winter time period, where there's a low interest by the consumers, public, and funding was very low, which again picked up after the 80s, where they have certain agents, and this is what we call as features or products, and this is where it is called. And very interestingly, which I didn't know for a very long time, was the first Roomba, which we have all used across, thanks to COVID, was created in 2002. Deep Blue was a very, very big activity for us when the IBM supercomputer was pitted against Gary Kasparov, the then chess champion. Because it was a supercomputer, they tried to compute all the possible permutations and combinations of the steps that Gary could take up. And he was the first machine to ever beat a human. And we also have a few other places. I'm sure we can have a look at this. We have had NASA's who managed to land rovers in 2003. We have got Siri's, and we have got some of these voice assistants which came up in 2011. Very interesting piece, but in today's date and age, a lot of our work is being done by the Siri's, and this is something that we are quite getting habituated to. And this keeps going on, so I'm not going to get there. So we'll just get down to the fundamentals, guys, on what AI is all about. And so some of the aspects that you need to understand as part of AI is that it needs to have a learning capability. Now, each of this, when you see an AI program, the extent or the intensity of each of these will be up to you to decide. But every AI program needs to learn. So it should have the ability to obtain and process new information. It should have a reasoning capability, able to manipulate information in different ways as needed. Today, all the cars that we see today are much more advanced than it was earlier. And we get to see, I think recently there was a news item where there was a self-driving car which rammed into another Tesla or something that. Maybe it could not see the person, it could not identify who the person is. So this is something that you keep notifying. It should understand, it should be able to manipulate information. It should grasp truth, determine the validity of the manipulated information. So any info that you're getting, it should be in a position to manipulate and tell you whether it is true or false. It should have relationships of data from a parent to a child. It should consider meaning, and it should separate facts from beliefs. I'm going to come to this. There are two different distinct types of AI work that you will work with. So each of these elements need to be fitted into your AI program or the AI project or product that you are intending to build. Having said that, there are some core concepts that you need to understand of AI, which I was briefly talking about. AI enables machines to mimic human cognitive abilities like learning and problem solving. Another piece that you keep learning is called ML. ML is nothing but machine learning, which is used for programming data. So it allows systems to learn from data without explicit programming, powering many AI applications. Deep learning is all about neural networks, artificial neural networks inspired by the human brain to process complex data of images, text, and speech. NLP, quite a few of us may have heard of this. It empowers machines to understand and generate human language, enabling intelligent interactions. Today, you will see a lot of AI companion, which will also transcript your speech to text, which is using NLP, which you will see at if you try and keep your AI companion on, it will be able to transcript whatever I'm stating. And you have some computer visions, which enables machines to extract insights from digital images. And this image that you get to see is a very well description of all these terms that you see. So you will see a data science, which is a collection of data, and data is a very, very important part from an AI standpoint. And you would have noticed that unless you have enough amount of data, your AI cannot be trusted and tested properly. So data science is all about collecting enough information that you have, which includes statistics and mathematics. It includes having domain knowledge for that particular area, whether it is oil and gas, whether it is aerospace, whether it is automotives, whether it is banking, financials, and having programming skills of how to cull data, how to parse data. And this is used extensively for in the areas of deep learning. And a superset of that is machine learning. So deep learning is all about neural networks. And then you write a lot of programming activities, which is used for machine learning. And a superset of all this is called artificial intelligence. So this is a quite a well drawn diagram for you to understand the relationship between AI, ML, DL, and DS. DS is nothing but data science. Is it okay? Can I move on, guys? Guys, am I good to go?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Now, there are two basic concepts that you need to understand, guys. The first one is called generative AI. This is something that you may have heard of, and there's a lot of noise going on around this area. So, generative AI is the AI that is capable of generating text, images, and other data using generative models in response to prompts. Generative AI models learn patterns and structure of the input training data and generate new data. Example, videos, maps, content generation. Today, chat GPTs. I think a Google map is one of the most widely used or misused application that you use when you travel. And what do? You put a place from point A to point B, and it gives you a couple of opinions, a couple of options of scenarios of how to go. Now, during that period, you suddenly make changes. What does it do? It recalibrates and then gives you a new screen. So it constantly keeps on generating and keeps on looking at new areas of how to work. Similarly, ChatGPT is also you give scenarios and then it gives you a new area to work. So this is what is called a generative AI. I'll give you a very interesting demo here. There is this tool called the Mid Journey. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this. Now, this is a tool which has been used, which is used generally by um, designers and by media guys. So you can go here, guys, and you can, just start typing. What are you looking for? Let me just stop this. Maybe I'll use something else. Now, this is one, I think, which is called Canva. You can have a look at this. Now, you can just write down the different terms that you're looking at, and it automatically creates images for you. Say, for example, I want to draw I just write down birds. Here, I'm just going to type the name of the, let me just see if I can show it to you. Now, can you see this? This already created at least around 6 images out here. So this is called a generative AI, guys, where it generates images on the fly for you. If you want to generate again, it just gives you the name and then you can just keep writing again. So generative AI is nothing but basically a concept where you are creating new data. You got applications like ChatGPT, Google Maps, you're able to create new content. So it includes 3 steps. It includes data generation, where you can create content like writing blogs, composing emails. It talks about transformation, where it transforms existing data samples to create new variations, and it enriches your data. Now you've seen the first step, and now you want to keep adding on to it. You can incrementally keep making items. Today you want to say a bike on the moon. Tomorrow you may want to say it should be colored in green color. Day after tomorrow you might want to say with 2 other people, it should have a starship at the back. So you can keep adding new activities and keep enriching this data. So this is called a generative AI concept. And this has come out in a big manner, and I'm sure all of you have heard this. So this is something that you will also try to understand skills in terms of programming, which you will learn at your own behest. And this is used mostly in the areas of creative industries. You've got ad agencies which create a lot of these ads today. It's used in the gaming industry. It is used for natural language processing, where you have to create new languages. And it is used in the map industry and so on and so forth. So anywhere where you have to create new data, you'll go through this concept called generative AI. The second concept is called discriminative or conditional AI. This is where you already have existing data and you want to match it with something which is already existing. Is called discriminative AI or conditional AI. So this is where the AI is capable of identifying patterns and making predictions based on existing data. This is used for supervised machine learning, where you're trying to use a lot of permutation combinations. Now today, how does the weather report guy come and tell you it's going to rain tomorrow? Or when you go to the weather, you want to see in the next 10 days, what is the predictive weather going to look like? That is called predictive analysis, where you're discriminating against the existing data. It is used for fraud detection, it is used for customer segmentation. Today, I want to know the list of people who are above the age group of 25, who have got a salary of maybe 100,000 rupees and who are from a particular geography. All this is done by using a lot of AI programming, by a lot of ML, which is machine learning activities. Today in India, some of you are maybe from India, you would have seen there is a product called the Digi Yatra, which automatically verifies who you are based on your photograph that is there in the industry. You just walk in with your face, and your face is your identification. You don't need to carry anything extra. How does he do that? He has a pattern of your face, and you're able to do that. Similarly, in your phone has got bio fingerprint locking. That is also called discriminative AI. He takes at least around 100 pictures of your fingerprints from different angles. Based on that, it is able to separate the data points into different classes and learning boundaries. So generative AI is when you have to create new data. Discriminative AI is when you want to verify against a particular activity. So when you want to make scenarios. Today, I'm sure all of us have seen movies or you have seen serials where they try to have a photograph of a particular villain and then they try to make different scenarios of someone with a wig, with a mustache, with a beard, and with different colors and different turbans and disguises. How did they do that? Because they have fed certain scenarios of this and they try to pull this out. So fraud detection, customer segmentations, SIEM tools, which is used in the service industry, face recognitions. I went to an audit last week and they use face recognition to open the doors. They don't even use your fingerprinting. So that's an additional level of entry into your office. So it is used for accuracy, for reliability, robustness, and for interpretation. So discriminative AI is used to classify or predict data, while generative models are used to create new data. So are we good to go, guys, till now? Interesting, right? Are we good, guys? Can you move on?
Yes, sir, we can move.
Excellent. So how do you define AI? The program has to act humanly. And one of the most ironic things that we have all seen is CAPTCHA, where you as a human have to interact with a machine to prove that you're human. Including maybe you have to select boxes where you have to come and write down, how many lamps are there in that city lamps are there, or how many traffic lights are there, how many cars are there in a box of 9 or 12. CAPTCHA, again, one of those areas where you have to type it down. Including one of the cases, very interestingly, a programmer told me that when you have a box which says, I am human, the machine looks at the way your cursor has moved from that place to that box. If it has moved in an absolute straight line, then the machine thinks that you're not human. So that is the level of automation or the level of programming that the system has done. So if your hand moves all over the screen and then goes and clicks the button, that means you're human. So characteristics of NLP, natural language processing, knowledge representation, automated reasoning, and machine learning. The first thing you have to do is act humanly, think humanly. Computer performs like a human. So all your HR activities like cognitive modeling, psychological testing, psychometric testing, brain imaging are all parts of AI. Think rationally and act rationally. So these are some of the elements that we need to look at when we are trying to build AI. And typically, guys, we have seen at least 2 or 3 levels in the industry now. The first one is called the AIs have 3 levels. The first one is absolutely narrow intelligence, where AI is used only for a particular area. I'm sure all of us have played games in our lives. We have played Scrabbles, or we have played Ludos, or we have played some games. So this is called a weak AI, where the type of AI is used only for a particular activity, nothing more, nothing less. So a weak AI is the type of AI we encounter most often today. ANI, as it is called, is excellent at performing specific tasks but struggles on anything outside that. Example, a chess playing program can analyze the board and make strategic moves to win, but it can't hold a conversation or write poems. Recommendation systems or shopping websites suggest items based on your purchase history. Yes, I've been there. The last five, suggestions that it'll give you. If you go and look for a Zomato's or look for your Swiggy's, it'll tell you what were the last three orders that you looked at based on which location you were from. But it doesn't understand the overall needs or budget. Doesn't ask you what is the budget that you're looking at. So this is a narrow intelligence where you're using it only for a specific purpose. Next comes the AGI, which is where most of the programmers are today trying to build their products in. It's a hypothetical level which should mimic human intelligence, generally learn, adapt, and solve problems that is indistinguishable from a human. Imagine an AI that can read and understand any book and then write a well-researched essay on the topic. A lot of us do that. When we go and type on ChatGPT and ask you to create a resume or try to create a book, create scripts. There's a huge amount of effort that goes in trying to create any music or trying to create books. That is the AGI part. So in AGI, a doctor could diagnose illnesses, prescribe medication, and even comfort patients, all with human empathy and reasoning. Today, there are sites where you just go and write your symptoms and it will give you certain diagnosis and prognosis on what could be the issues that you have and also maybe prescribe certain medication. So there are virtual doctors in the line which will come and tell you what is happening. The third is called super intelligence, which is not really there right now, but at some point in time humans will come there where it will surpass human intelligence. And so this is the realm of science fiction, but some experts believe that is a possibility. So you do see certain cases where, especially if you see science fiction movies today, where you can go and one of the best features that I have seen is a replicator, where it goes and replicates food for you. You go there and say, I want a hot coffee. So it will actually create a cup with a coffee for you. Or when you want to transport yourself from one place to the other. These are all features which are right now not there in the system, but at some point in time, it might be able to do this. But as of now, the first and second levels are the levels where most of the programming are going to sit through. And this is how a typical life cycle looks like, guys. And the name is very, very important, responsible AI. End of the day, the program or the feature that you need to build has to be responsible. You have to create a product which is created to make you and the society responsible for the product. You cannot create a product and then it hijacks you. We have had cases where I'm sure some of you have seen in India, there's a motor vehicle company called Ola, where it created a feature for reverse driving of your scooter. This was meant for easy, exit of your vehicle when you're parked. For some ladies, they could not take the vehicle out, so they would use this feature and take the vehicle out. But then in certain cases, it would at high speed, at the speed of 40 kilometers per hour, it will suddenly engage into reverse gear. Not a very great thing to do, guys. One more case, there was a recent note that I saw recently. There's a guy who got trapped in a self-driving car and he could not come out of the car for almost like 20 minutes. He had to drive to the airport, but the car would not allow him to get out. It just kept circling around the airport and did not allow him to, exit even after calling the cab owner and cab, customer support. Till the till the battery died, the guy couldn't get out. So it's very scary things that you need to look at, guys. So when you're looking at an AI, first envision and you do an impact assessment. I'm going to talk about this briefly a little later, but you have to do an impact assessment of what does the product do to you once you bring it to the market. You have to collect data. Very, very, very important. The higher quality of data that you have, the better will be your testing activities and better will be your result. You have to build a prototype. You have to test it, build it for production, deploy and monitor, and cycle goes on. So when you say envision an impact assessment, please look at what is the impact, look at what is the processing, do a prototyping of what features are you looking at wanting to add, and iteratively test it, build it, deploy, and monitor. And this is a cyclic activity that you need to build. So it's a very important ambition, and this is something that we do not really propagate in any of the other standards, guys. But in AI, this has to be a very, very important piece, and I'm going to come to it when I come to controls, that there is an explicit line item only on responsible AI development. Now let's come down to what are some of the core elements that you need to build into your product. The product has to be fair and non-discriminative. When I say the product or the feature, it has to be fair. You cannot come and say it'll only work for white Americans, or it will only work for Afro Americans, or it will only work for Asia Pac. Can't work. All systems have to work across the globe. The AI system should be determined and used in an ethical manner, ensuring fair and unbiased outcome. It should be transparent and explainable. What does your product do? Today, there are a lot of products that you build or buy into the system, you don't even know what it does. And this is something that has been an issue around 3 years ago, 4 years ago. There are a lot of these products from one of the countries which was banned. Why? Because it was skimming data and sending it back to that parent country. I'm not going to name it. I don't want to get political about it, but I'm sure all of you know where this comes from. We have cases where BlackBerry was trying to install machines here, but the Indian government wanted the servers to sit in India, but they said no, we will not do that. So the data was expected to be mined in US, so they refused to do it. So you have to be very transparent what the product does, and there has to be a human oversight. Please read this. Every product of yours has to have a human oversight to see what does it do before you make your decision making. There has to be an accountability by the product owner. If something happens, who will take ownership? If a ADAS doesn't deploy, or if your drone crashes somewhere where it's not supposed to crash, or you have a automated self-driving car which is suddenly gets locked. There have been a lot of cases. We're not sure how good it is, but Tesla does not run after a particular point in time. It just if you're not paid your EMI or something, it just doesn't do that. There are some cases where we've heard of a lot of these issues that take place. So it's something that you need to be very, very careful of. Very, very important, guys. Privacy and security is of major, major importance. We've had a case where recently there was a gentleman who went into Harvard, and he had a Google Lenses with him. And he took photographs of all the people there. He went back to his room and downloaded data of them. And he was playing around with the data. Without your permission, without the permission of yours, your photographs are taken. So there's a huge amount of privacy and security that comes into play. And this is something that you need to safeguard on a very, very important basis. Now, today, a lot of automated data comes in. I'm sure some of us have been victims of deep fake. I'm sure all of us have had cases of, at least in India, we have got FedEx related cases come in where they say that your data has been, your packages have been impacted. So please try to make sure that you are doing this. So there is a huge amount of privacy and security elements that you need to build into your system, guys. And this is something that you need to be very, very, very careful of. Design has to be human-centered. End of the day, because your system is going to be is supposed to mimic humans, it should be centered around a human. What is the expectation? How does it help the human at the end of the day? So you're supposed to enhance decision making and not replace it. Today, the fact that you have Series or you have people who can automatically build your schedulers for you, it's only meant to enhance your decision making. It should not replace it at all. So your design should be human-centered, and there has to be safety and reliability. Again, how safe is my machine and how reliable is it? When I say safety, how long will it last? 10 hours, 20 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours, and before it crashes. So it has to be very, very secure, and it has to be reliable. The next set is there has to be a professional responsibility, just like we said, accountability, a responsibility on the people who are building the system. It has to promote human values. Very important again. I will come to this in a bit when I come to the controls also and clauses, that there is something called bias and there is something on social impact. So end of the day, each of these should help you in, like I said earlier, in cases of human centric. How are you going to promote human value by doing this? I'm going to reduce the amount of repeated activities by introducing Roomba. I'm going to make sure that the back pain that you get by sweeping, swabbing, or by, it cuts down my human effort by at least around 25%, and it makes it much more cleaner, and etc. Whatever you may look at. End of the day, it should promote human values. It should also be, you should be able to take care, or you should take control of, the human should be able to take control at some point in time. The moment you see that the machine is taking over, there should be a way to override it. Respect autonomy of humans, ensure important decisions remain subject to human review and approval. The AI system, whatever you're building, should have a fail-safe mechanism which allows humans to, at the end of the day, to approve, add, delete, modify features. Community involvement and development. Again, a very important piece. You have to communicate. The community involvement and development should be there. Today, I was reading an article where they were saying, it's a very interesting article, guys, that the amount of the amount of material that is being mined for the batteries today. There's a huge amount of copper that is being mined by the industries for EV vehicles. Now, you'll believe me or not, guys, there is an article which stated that from 2018 till date, till 2050, the amount of material that is going to be mined is equivalent or more than the entire amount of copper that has been mined from the date humans have come into date till 2018. So from the time the humans have been born till 2018, the amount of copper that was mined is equivalent or more is equivalent to the amount of copper that is going to be mined from 2018 to 2050, which is around 30 odd years. So in 32 years, you're going to mine as much as maybe the last 5,000 years. So what does it do to your entire system? And you still will not be able to fund your entire copper requirement for EVs. Is that a good thing to do? I'm not sure. Does it really help the system? We don't know. So how do you dispose of your EV vehicles? The amount of lead that goes into your system. So you have to give a huge amount of community involvement and development when you are building your AI. And then the laws and labor practices. There are certain laws of the land that does not allow you to use too much of AI. So you need to be careful of when you are trying to build your system that it should comply with the law of the land and it should sustain environmental stability. So there has to be sustainable goals. I'm going to come to this. There is something on climate change, which I'm going to discuss as we move forward. So you have to be very careful when you are trying to build your AI system. Questions? Does it make sense, guys? Is the flow okay? Is the speed okay?
Yes, clear.
Excellent. So these are some of the standards that you will see, just like ISO has close to around 80 odd family of standards. So if you go to Wikipedia and you type 27,000, the family, there are close to around 90 plus standards in the information security space, from 27,000, 27,001, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 17. 17 is for cloud, 18 is for data privacy and cloud, and so on and so forth. Similarly, for AI, there are multiple standards. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but you can just read them through. So the first one is called the vocabulary. So if you want to read what is the vocabulary for AI, you can go to the 22989. Then there is one for system impact assessment, which is the 42,005. This is a very new piece of how to do a system impact assessment. The guidance on risk for AI is on 23,894. For us as certification bodies and for you as Ceycert, you'll need to also take this DIS 42,006. It's in a DIS state. It is expected to get released anytime soon. That's why a lot of companies are still not getting themselves certified on this. But for certification bodies and for accreditation bodies, this is a important document to guide on how to do an AI audit. Then you have the 24028, which I discussed is the 2020 is on trustworthiness and AI. How trustworthy is your product? Which is again something that you need to see. We spoke about reliability, we spoke about safety. So what is your trustworthiness? How can I trust my AI system? Will it last 20,000 kilometers? Will it last a heat temperatures of 5 degrees to 45 degrees? Use case, I have already discussed this. They are close to around 130 use cases on AI. Privacy and security for these use cases is TR 27563. If you read this, security and privacy in AI use cases. So those 130 use cases, how is the security and privacy being taken care of? This is a separate standard. This is a separate framework for AI using ML 23053. And there's one for testing of AI, which is 29119. I don't expect you to remember all this. I'll give you a PDF so you guys can have a look at this. And then bias. This is again an important piece. I will discuss this, guys. There is something on bias in AI systems. Is there a bias? We were talking about fairness. But how do I check for bias? Is it required? Is it meant only for people above a particular age group or a particular financial conditioning? How do I verify bias? What is my system life cycle? We showed you one small grid about what a life cycle looked like a couple of slides ago. So this is your life cycle, guys, that we were discussing a little earlier. So this 5.6, the one which you saw here, is your 5338 is your AI system life cycle. Then you have one on robustness of neural networks, which is your deep learning. Then there is one on ethical and societal concerns. I was just briefly talking to you about what are the issues with respect to ethics and society concerns. Today, the fact that we are mining copper in 32 years that you had done for the last 7,000 years. A very, very huge amount of ethics and society concerns that we are talking about. So there's a standard only to look at that. How to look at computational approaches to AI, how to talk about big data, and how to talk about intelligence and governance. So this is one area which we are talking about legal requirements. So there are bodies which will come and check your AI systems. So please go and read this 38507, which is a governance implications on the use of AI by organizations. So these are just some of the different standards that you may wish to use during your implementation lifecycle. And some of them we do walk them through briefly when we do the AI standards that we generally walk them through. So this is the brief that I had, guys, before we move to the actual standard. Is there any questions here? Am I going too fast? Is it good?
No,
So
sir.
I've taken almost an hour plus just to give you a small brief about AI before I get to the actual crux of the standard. So now coming down to the 42,001, I'm sure some of you may have gone through the other standards. So the 42,001 2023 standard provides a framework for organizations to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve the AIMS. It is meant to ensure responsible, ethical, and trustworthy development and use of AI systems. It helps organizations manage risk associated with AI, build trust with stakeholders, and comply with relevant regulations. So this is how the standard looks, guys. And if and when you guys want to look at, want to invest in the standard, I will strongly suggest that you try to, let me see if I can show you how the standard looks. Yes. So this is how the standard looks, guys. So this is called the 42001 standard. Now, if you see this. So I will be walking this through briefly wherever required, just to give you an example of what it is. So this is how the 42001 standard looks like. And let's move on. So having said that, let's move on to the standard. And please ask me any questions that you have, if there's any. Okay, so this structure is very similar to any of the other standards. So please understand, unlike the 27001, the controls are also embedded into the 42001. In the 27001 standard that you went through, the ISO 27001 only had the clauses, and 27002 had the controls definitions. Yes, the 27001 had the controls also, which is Appendix A, which had only the brief coverage of what your controls look like, the 93 controls as per 2022. But the 42001 has got a combination of all those. I'm going to run that through. So you have 0, which is introduction. You have 1, which is a scope. 2 is the normative references. Where is this IS standard picked up from? 3 is the terms and definitions. 4 is the context. 5 is leadership. 6 is planning. 7 is support. 8 is operations. 9 is performance evaluation. 10 is improvement. Then you have annexure A, annexure B, C, and D. So let me go one by one. So the structure of 42001 is entirely built on this particular page. So the first 3 up to 0 to 3 are only meant for indicative purpose. You are not expected to be audited, or you're not supposed to implement the 1 to 3. You're only supposed to implement 4 to 10. So you have an introduction of what the standard looks like. What is the scope of the standard? Where has it been picked up from? What are the terms and definitions? Then you have the context, the leadership. I'm going to come to each one of them. What does the company do is part of context. Then you have a leadership. What is expected of the leader? Then you have a planning phase. Then you have support. What is these extended? So what is the type of support you require for building the standard? What are the operations activities you are going to look at? What is the evaluation you are going to work with, and the improvement areas? And then there are 38 controls in ISO 42001, guys. So the description of the controls is in annexure A. What does the control call out? This is equivalent to your 27001. The annexure is A is only about a brief description about the control. Implementation is annexure B, equivalent to your 27002. If you are aware of the 27001 and 27002, if you remember in the ISO 27001 framework, there were appendices at the end. And in the appendix A, say A5 is all organization controls. A5.1 talks about policies. What should that policy do is described in your 27002. Similarly, annexure B is the guidance of what is expected in annexure A. So let me give you this example, guys. Let me go back to your standard. So your entire structure is the same as in annexure A. Is this? Does anyone know what is NXSL? Any of you have heard what's NXSL all about? Any of you? Guys, has anyone heard of what NXSL is? Subodha, I think you should be able to answer this.
Yes, I have heard about those things.
No, but I think I've also discussed this earlier in the class in different areas, and I'm sure all of you have also heard of this. Annexure SL is nothing but a structure of how your standards is expected to be, how you're supposed to structure your standard. Now, when you go to any of these places and you try to look at your standard, now let me try and pull out a standard for you. The NXSL is nothing but the definition of how a particular how a standard is supposed to look like. Now let me try to build this, show it to you. Let me try to build this for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please understand before the 2013, before 2013, all standards, whether it is 9K, 20K, 27K, had a different structure. Now, if you go back to any of the standards before 2013, say 2005 version of ISO 27001, or you go with the earlier version of ISO 9001, which is 2008, or you go with the 2011 version of 20,000. Now, the structure was absolutely different. What was clause 1 in one was different, and clause 2 is in the other, was clause 3 in another. So you had a different opinion, and if you were implementing this, you had a challenge because what was available in one standard was not available in the second. So this became a big challenge. So what we had to do is ISO decided to build this template, and they called it the NXSL. SL stands for structured language. So every standard going forward is supposed to follow this language. So 1 is scope, 2 is normative reference, 3 is terms and definitions, 4 is context, 5 is leadership, 6 is planning, 7 is support, 8 operations, 9 and 10. So this is the structure. So you are supposed to build a scope. What is the scope of the standard? What are the references that you are going to call out? What are the terms and definitions? What does the company do? What is the leadership looking expected? What is planning? What is the type of support? So this standard, if you go back to your 27,001, you exactly have the same structure. Sorry, 42,001. So it's the same structure. So up to clauses is the same. Now, when you come down to the controls, now some of you may have seen the 27,001 control. Now, these are the controls that you will notice in your 42,001. Now, if you see this, this is very similar to your 27,001, where you have controls at the end. Now, if you see this, this is your control 2.2, which talks about policy. It just says the organization shall document a policy for development and use of AI. Now, the description of this is in B2.2. The organization shall document a policy for development, and this is the guideline. So Annexure A talks about the control. Annexure B talks about the implementation of this control. Am I making sense, guys?
Yes, sir. Good.
Right, so this is the ask. So basically what you are doing here is that we are looking at the clauses from 4 to 10. We are looking at the controls, which is there from clause 2 to clause 10. And the implementation of these controls in A is B. So if you look at B, B goes from implementation guidance, and this goes from almost page number 29 up to almost the end. It goes up to page number 53. So almost 30, 40 pages of implementation guidance for any of them. Let's say I pick up 9.4. Now, if I go to B 9.4, you will see how does it be differ, how many lines this is. So B 9.4 talks about intended use of AI. This is all that the clause 8.9.4 says. B 9.4 is a express total detailed discussion of this. So when you come to the AI classes of mine at training, I will be discussing this more in detail. But this is just to let you know that structure is of the standard is this. You first have your clauses from 1 to 10. Annexure A is the reference controls that you are looking at, the 38 controls that we will briefly discuss. And B talks about how to implement them. C talks about your objectives. I'm sure some of you may be aware that 27001 talks about objectives, 6.2. So it gives you some guidance of what objectives you can look at. Where are your risks coming from? So Annexure C is again a guideline of what could be some of your objectives you wish to set up and what are the sources of risk. And Annexure D talks about the domains and sectors that AI is going to work with. So this is the basic structure of your 42001, guys. Any questions till now? Can I move on, guys?
You can go ahead, sir.
Okay. So coming down to the, like I said earlier, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all expected to be only meant for 0, 1, 2, 3 is only meant for consumption. It's not meant for implementation anywhere, but you can read this through at any point whenever you feel like. You can look at what is the scope. So let us read what is the scope of the standard. So if you go to 1, it says the document specifies requirements and provides guidance for the establishment, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving AI. References, it takes all your references from 22,989, which I discussed earlier. So you have a dedicated document for your terminology, which is your vocabulary, and then terms and definitions are the same. Now coming down to the 4th one, which is the first auditable clause. So all of you are aware that it talks about context. So this is a place where you are looking at your issues and needs and expectations. And one thing, let's be very, very clear, guys. There is a directive from ISO. And ISO is very clear that you are expected to implement ISO and also have climate change as a requirement. Now, there is a directive which has come out with respect to quality. Now, let me try to pull that out for you. There is a explicit requirement by, there is a communication which has come from, let me try to close this and open it again. And Subhada, if you need, I think if you don't have it, let me know. I will try to share this document with you. But this is something that you need to be aware of, guys. There's a directive which has come from IAF. Every standard that you are trying to certify, you need to add climate change as part of your issues and needs and expectations. Have you seen this directive anywhere, Subhada?
Sorry, sir.
Have you seen this directive by IAF?
Yeah.
It is expected to be in all these standards. So you need to implement climate change as an issue in 4.1 and 4.2.
Yeah.
Understand the, sorry? Have you seen this?
Yes, yeah, climate changes.
Yes, so climate change has to be added. And best part is it has already been added in your 42001.
Right.
So they have added this into your standard. If you notice here, they've added this as part of climate change as an issue in 4.1 and also in 4.2. Whatever was a directive earlier, and this is an expectation, so it is there in all your standards, be it 22301 business continuity, be it your 35,001, which is on biorisk, 27,001 information security. In all these areas, climate change is a requirement. So the first ask is very simple. First and foremost, like I questioned you, you shall determine external and internal issues relevant to the purpose. What are your problem statements and whether climate change is an issue? And then these are the big tickets that you need to work with, guys. As an AI user, producer, are you a provider? Are you a producer? Are you a customer? Are you a partner? Are you a subject? Or are you relevant authorities? So each one of them has to be called out by you. If you notice here, the organization has to first have a purpose. What does the system do? What is the purpose of the AI system? Are you a provider? Are you providing the platform? Are you a middleman? Getting it from someone and sharing it? Are you a producer? Do you produce the AI document? Are you a developer? Are you a designer? Are you an operator, tester, evaluator? Are you a deployer? Are you a human factor professional, domain expert, impact assessment, etc.? Are you a customer, so on and so forth? So basically, guys, what you need to understand here is, as a AI person who's going to embrace AI as a product or a feature or whatever it is, you are trying to go for a AI certification, you have to identify who are you. Just like for your data privacy, are you a controller or processor? Similarly, for an AI implementation, who are you? What is your landscape all about? Are you a subject? Which means, are you the person whose data is being collected? Are you a partner? Are you partnering with someone for the AI product or service? Are you a customer? Are you a producer? Are you a provider? Can someone give me a difference between a customer and a user? Any of you? Are they the same? Anyone? Oh, anyone, guys? Did you hear the question? The difference between a customer and a user? Guys, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anyone?
So a customer purchases a product or a service, and a user is someone who uses it.
Sorry, what was the first one, sir? You said customer is?
Customer purchases a product or a service,
Brilliant, brilliant, Vikram.
while
So basically, yeah,
someone who uses that product.
correct. So the difference, guys, here is a customer is someone who purchases or who buys the product or who signs the dotted line on your contract, whereas a user is someone who uses the product. So you need to be very careful. Are you a customer or are you a user? You go to the market and buy a phone for your son. You are the customer, your son is the user. So here, this particular document, please, when you are trying to implement, make sure that you're buying the standard. And you have to first, as a requirement, make sure that you are calling yourself out. What are you? Are you a provider? Are you a producer, customer, partner, a subject, or a relevant authority? And also determine the climate change. So as part of the standard, guide, because this is only a overview I'm giving you. So you first have to understand the organization and its context. What is your issue? What is the external and internal issues? Do you have a problem? If you have a problem, who are your interested parties? And for both 4.1 and 4.2, you need to determine climate change. There needs to be a change, and if the climate change, and today there are a lot of cases where climate change can be an issue, whether it is for environmental management, whether it is for data privacy, whether it is for ISMS, each of these areas, there can be something on climate change, including as simple as today. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, but there is an interesting, if you go to your, if you go to your Microsoft updates, if you are using a Microsoft product and you go to this update, there is this link called the Microsoft update link. And if you see here, even Microsoft is committed in reducing carbon emissions. Even Microsoft gives you that they are trying to work on carbon footprint. So there is a concerted effort that is being made in the system, guys, to look at climate change. Today, you are using machines which are not more than, say, maybe 2 years or 3 years old. Why? because the carbon footprint on this is lower. You're using EV vehicles, or you're using motion detectors, or you're using an e-waste disposal mechanism. So you might be using any of these activities for your climate change in any of these domains. So you have to identify what are your needs, issues, needs and expectations, determine your scope, and then determine your AI system. Very important for you to understand that 4.1 and 4.2, if it is not done, especially with respect to climate change, we will automatically give you a non-conformity because this has been a directive from ISO. Once you have done that, then you move to leadership. So this goes without saying, leadership and commitment needs to be there. Second is your policy statement, not a policy document. So just like you have an ISMS policy, or you have a QMS policy, or you have a data privacy policy, you still also have to have an AIMS policy, AI Management System Policy, which is a policy statement, which is a one-pager, which needs to be on your face. Then you need to have roles and responsibilities, which is already there. Just like you have in ISMS, you also need to define what are your roles and responsibilities for AI. Do I have an AI manager? Do I have an AI director? Do I have AI developers, products, whatever is the requirement? What are the roles that I need for AI? So in your clause 4 was all about getting the context. What does the company do? Having the issues, having the needs and expectations, defining the scope. And scope can only be built after 4.1 and 4.2. Very similar to your standard 42001 is very similar to your AIMS, ISMS. So you will be working on this. So let me just try and show it to you again. Where are we? Let me try to bring this up again for you. Whether I'm looking at 9K, 20K, 27K, the concept is the same. Unless I have my 4.1 and 4.2 built, I can't build my 4.3. Which is, unless my issues are made, my needs and expectations are done, I cannot build my scope and I cannot do my AI. So that's the ask here. So your system is very simple. You need to build your standard 4.1, which is needs, issues, needs and expectations, scope and system. Then build your leadership, have a policy, and have the roles and responsibilities. This is where things get a little interesting, guys. So your 6 is all about planning. And this is where there is a new element which has come up. And this is one which I'm going to take a little bit of time for you to try and understand. That when you do a 6.1, which is to address risk and opportunities, you got your objectives and then you got a plan. In 6.1, there is a new element over and above the risk assessment, which is system impact assessment. So as part of your risk and opportunities, you need to first define what are the risks that you have. And those risks will have to come from your 4.1 and 4.2. Again, something which I always expect you to remember, that your issues that you have identified as part of clause 4.1 and needs and expectations that you have built as part of 4.2 will have to come into your 6.1. Now, if you notice here, you will have to start doing risk based on 4.1 and 4.2. Now, I have seen a lot of audits that I worked with, including the one yesterday that I worked with. People do not cover risk with using this. So this becomes a big, big issue for me, guys. Please do not get into this without properly managing this. So your needs and expectation, your risk has to be built in using your AI, building your issues, and then build your risk assessment and your risk treatments. I'm sure all of you are aware of what is the risk assessment and risk treatments that we are looking at. Once you have identified your risk, and then you have defined what is your treatment. Now, what are the treatments? That again has to be matched with your SOA, which is your statement of applicability. So the 38 controls that you have built up, they should be applicable. They should be added into your SOA. And if you see here, Your annexure A has to have these controls. Now, guys, in case you are implementing 27001 and AI together, you need to have an SOA which has got 93 controls from 27001 plus 38 controls from your AIMS. If you are doing AIMS plus PIMS plus AIMS, then you have got 93 controls from PIMS. You got 31 controls from controller of PIMS. You have got 18 controllers, processor controls, and you got 38 from your annexure A of your AI. So AI also will have to be part of your AI system in case you are looking at this. So your RISC register will always have only those 38 controls. Am I getting you lost? Is it something that you're already aware? Is it getting too boring? Guys, are we good? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
No, is it good? Is it something that you guys are already aware of?
Yes, sir, it's good.
Now, there is one new piece which has come in, guys, and this is over and above the risk assessment. This is the only standard which is talking about something called a system impact assessment. Very important document, guys, a very, very important document because your product or your feature is expected to impact individuals or the society. So you need to build something called a system impact assessment. And there are different templates for this. If you're keen, I can always share it with you. Now, this is a template. If you see, the organization shall define a process for assessing potential consequences for individuals or group of individuals or both, and society that can result from the development, provision, or use of AI system. Today, say, for example, you are trying to get a Google Glass that you are giving it, Google specs that you are giving to your employees. You come and say that this will automatically get you to collect data from the net and you'll be able to process data quickly. Great. It does good to you as an individual, but look at the privacy and security issues with respect to impact. What impact does it have to an individual? What impact does it have to a society? So there is a very, very detailed document that you will need to try and understand. And that document is something that I will try to show you, is something that you will need to work with. And this one is what I generally would like to show you. Just try to build this for you and see how it works. So this is this document, ladies and gentlemen, is called a system impact assessment document. If you're keen, I can share it with you at the end of the day. This is called a responsible AI impact assessment template. It talks about what is the impact that this particular system have on your individual or as a society. Now, if you notice this is a very exhaustive document, close to almost 17 pages. So it talks about what is the system profile, what is the name, what is the team name, revision history, who has reviewed it, what is the life cycle plan for each of these systems, what date, time are you going to do planning, when are you going to design, development in case you are developing the system. What does the system do? What links do I have to other systems? If case there is any link to a third-party vendor. What is the purpose? Very important piece. This purpose has to match with the other purpose that we are looking at. If you notice here also, we had spoken about purpose here. In your 4.1, speak about purpose here. Now this purpose has to match with this purpose here. What are the features? What are the other features that you are planning to implement? Do they have any relationship to other products? Where is it being deployed? Which location? Where is the future that might be deployed? What languages? What is the method to deploy? What is it being used for? Intended use. Now there is a separate control number called intended use. I'm going to come to that. And then what are the purpose, benefits, and potential harm? This is an important document, guys. For every product that you build, there has to be questions on harm. No product is perfect here. Any product that you use, there's always a harm that can cause. Excessive use of this product may impact in your hearing abilities, or excessive hearing this using a earphone may have a neck issue. Anything that you build will always expect you to have some do's and don'ts. Don't drive this vehicle above a particular speed, then your reaction time will be lower. Don't eat too much of rich food because it may upset your stomach. Similarly, any product that you build will always have benefits and should always have some impact to you if you use it. So what could be your system harm? If I use it above 45 degrees centigrade, it may not work properly. If I use it below 5 degrees, it may not work properly. Or the data that you have is not proper. So you need to write down the harm. What is the oversight control? What is your communications to stakeholders? Who will be exposed to the system? Who all are the people? Similarly, what is my quality of service? Look at this. Which stakeholder will be affected? Will it be the customer? Will it be the user? Will it be the data subject? Who are the people? What type of people will get impacted? What is the resources and opportunities? Demeaning, stereotyping. This is another piece that we talk about. Which type of people will it be? Whom am I going to stereotype? Stereotype is that I'm going to use a particular set of names, or I'm going to look only at Afro-Americans, or I'm only going to look at Filipinos, or I'm only going to look at Indonesians within the age group of, say, 15 and 45. That is stereotyping. Demeaning is ensuring that I am reducing his value, or insulting him or disrespecting him. So what is my level of all these? How ready am I? So this, guys, is a very brief document. If anyone is interested, let me know. I will share this with you, and then you guys can have a look, and then you can take it up. So this is called an impact assessment document. And this is the fourth part in the entire activity. So you are doing a risk assessment, you're doing a risk treatment, and you also need to do a system impact assessment. Any questions till now? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
So this is the only difference between the biggest difference between the 27,001 and 42,001, where you are now over and above the risk assessment document. You also have to prepare the system impact assessment document. And then we come down to the objectives, which I'm sure all of you are aware of what the objectives are. So your objectives is nothing but making sure that you have measurable components to your engagement. And what is my measurables that I'm going to work with? That is called my objectives that I'm going to look at. Now let me go back to your 6.1.2, 6.2's objectives. And the next one is plan for change, which is similar to your 27,001. This is a new clause which was added in 27,001, 2022, of how do you plan for changes? When do you make changes to the system? Similar to your 27,001, so this talks about when will I make changes to my standard. So once I've done my support, guys, then I go into, my planning, then I go to my support. So what support am I expecting from the management? So you have resources. Resources may be of four types. It'll have people, it'll have infrastructure, it'll have finance, it'll have technology. So you need a combination of all these to derive and to manage your AIMS. How many people do I need? How much of money do I need? What type of infrastructure in terms of building, in terms of ISPs, etc. I need? What type of technology am I looking at? Mainframes, am I looking at cloud? And then the same things remain this, everything remains the same in this. Competence, what are the people and how competent are they? What is the awareness that I need to bring to the table? How do I communicate? And what is my documented info? So support is basically what is the kind of extension, what is the kind of requirement that I need to bring to the table. And if you guys, if you remember in your ISO 27001 clauses also, I said 4, 5, 6, and 7 follows the clauses follow the PDCA model: plan, do, check, and act. The 4, 5, 6, and 7 is planning, 8 is do, 9 is performance evaluation, and 10 is improvement. So how do I make sure that I'm improving my journey? So I work with my communications, and then I do my documented info. 8 is talks about operations, which again I do by planning. This is where I prepare my documents. Till 7, it is all about policy. So I need to have a risk assessment policy. I need to have a risk treatment policy. I need to have a system impact policy. And when am I going to do these activities? 8 is all about having the registers. So when will I do each of these activities? Having a risk assessment, risk treatment, and a system impact assessment. So the template that you saw, this is what is the impact assessment all about. And then once I finish my do, I'm looking at my check. Checking is on a regular basis. The first one is called MMAE. How do I monitor, measure, analyze, and evaluate? So please understand, guys, for every activity you do, even for you to come into this call at 1:30 in the afternoon, you would have planned and said, I will finish my work by say 12 o'clock. After 12 o'clock, I will come and work on I will do these activities. I will check my watches and then I will improve. So I'm going to do my internal audit and then I'm going to do my management review. I'm sure all of you are already aware there's no change here. And the last one is with respect to continual improvement and NC. In case there are any audit requirements, you'll come back and do this. So from a clause standpoint, guys, there is only one new requirement that has come out, and that is called the system impact assessment. And of course, you have got your climate change. So this is the basic expectation from the clauses point of view. So are there any questions before I move on to the controls? Is this clear? Is there any doubts here?
So this is same as the ISO 27001, sir. Is it?
Yes, the clause numbers are the same as 27001, sir, except that there is a new requirement with respect to your system impact assessment.
Yeah.
So this is the only new requirement that has come out, sir. That is one. And second, in the 27001, there was no requirement for you to ask for whether I'm a producer or I'm a processor. So data subject. So that requirement was not there in the 27001, sir. So if you notice this was not there in your 27001. Am I right?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah. So this is not there. So in 42001, this is the ask. So as a producer, as someone who is going to develop or going to implement, these are the questions that you need to ask. Am I a provider? Am I a producer? Am I a customer? So today, if I'm going to buy a new AI product, I'm only a customer or user. If I'm going to I'm going to jointly do it with someone, then I'm a provider. If I'm going to develop, then I become a producer. So it all depends on what is the area that you're going to look at, sir, and it all starts with a purpose. So this purpose was also not something that you saw in your 27001. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah, because see, you are trying to build an AI system, right? So why? What is the need for you to build the system? Am I doing a traffic light system? Today, when you go and especially in India, in Hyderabad, there's a way to try and see whether you can calibrate these signals for a particular route. When you go, yesterday I was going to the airport. So I got stuck in each traffic light for 2 minutes. So it was a cascading effect. I almost spent 20 minutes in front of these traffic lights. I go from one, jump to the second, again it gets stopped. Again from second goes to the third. What am I bringing an AI for? Automated. What will it do? It will take my photographs. Today there are systems where you can automatically go and give you receipts based on your photograph. They take a photograph of your vehicle. But what does it do? It also has questions on your privacy. So you have to decide the purpose, sir. So the difference between 27,001 and 42,001, 27,001 does not look at any intent, does not look at impact to an individual or society. Whereas 42,001, because you are trying to mimic a human, you have to be more careful in how you are building your system. Does it answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's get down to the normative references, guys. So please understand these are only reference controls, just like in 27,001. These are only meant for you to check whether they're applicable, yes, no, or you can use any of the others. And unlike in 27,001, your clauses do not start with 5, it starts with 2. So if you see here, A1 is general, it starts with A2. And in A2, the first one is called objective. That is why it does not start with 2.1. Any point 1 is always the objective. Even in 3, it starts with 3.2. 4 starts with 4.2. 5 starts with 5.2. So in AI, the clauses start from the controls start from A2 to A10. Whereas in ISMS, it starts from A5 to A8. Am I right, Subodha? A5, A6, A7, A8. Whereas here it starts from A2, A2, A1 is general, A2.1 is objective. How do I know this? If you go down to your B. If you see this, pick up anything else here. When you pick up B2.1, just look at this. B2.1 is objective, B2.2 is policy.
Right.
Take 3.1. 3.1 is objective. So if you go back to this table, guys, it's all about the 2.1s are the objective of that particular standard. So the first thing it will talk about is your policies related to AI. So there are 9 clauses, control numbers A2 to A10. So A2 talks about policies related to AI. You need to have an AI policy similar to your 5.1 of your standard, which talks about having IS policy and topic specific policies. It talks about alignment with other policies and review of the policy. So here it says the organization shall document a policy for the development or use of AI. The organization shall determine where these policies can be effected, a review of the policies. So before I go there, let me just try and give you a brief of how many clauses are there, controls are there. So we finished all this. So this is where we come to. So there are 3 controls from A2, 2 in A3, 3 and 2, 5, 5 and 5, 10, 10 plus 4, 14, 14 plus 2, 16, 16 plus 7, 23, 23 plus 5, 28, 28 plus 4, 32, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. So there are a total of 38 controls, guys. So the first one is in terms of policies related to AI. So the objective to provide management direction and support for AI support. Second talks about internal organization. Third talks about resources. Fourth talks about assessing impact. A6 is the only one which has got 2 parts to it, where you have management guidance of AI and you have a system lifecycle. In case you are building your system on your own, then A6 comes into play. If you are not, then entire A6 can be disabled or excluded. Just like you have in your ISO 27001, if you have A8.25, which is on software development, A.25, A.26, A.27. If you are not doing software development, then all those get excluded. Similarly, if you are not a developer, then entire A6 can get disabled or excluded. So the first thing you need to look at is policies related to AI. I'm going to go through some of this briefly. What is your internal organization looking like? What are your resources that you require for AI? What is your impact? Similar to your 6.1.4 and 8.1.4, what is the impact that it builds to the system AI? What is your life cycle that you have? And then, which is that you're going to work with? How do you collect data? There's an explicit section only for collecting data. I'll briefly discuss this as we move on. And then interested parties. What information do you need from interested parties? How do you use AI? And last is, what is your third party customer relationship? And B, we already discussed, is the details of this. So the first one, with respect to A2, we spoke about this. This is A2, which talks about policy. So the third section is nothing but B, guys. Implementation guidance is nothing but B. This is the A part. This is the annexure B. You can read this at your free will. I'm not going to get there. It's going to be quite a heavy thing for you. But then yeah, A2 is policy. This is the A2.1 objective to provide management direction. You need to have a policy. It has to align with other policies and you need to review your policy. Very simple. So A2 is all about having an AI policy. Similar to your other topic specific policies like access management, asset management, or HR or admin or facilities or data privacy or backup and restore. Similarly, if you are trying to build an AI, please make sure that you have a policy. Then AI roles and responsibilities, similar to what you did in your 5.3 in your standard. What you saw here, the same thing comes up here. And then 3.3 talks about reporting concerns. Very, very important activity, guys, as part of AI. You need to have a way to report concerns. Now, this concern can come from a developer, it may come from a tester, it may come from a supplier, but you need to give them an opportunity to inform that there can be issues. And every system that you have is not foolproof. So you are expected to, the organization shall define and put in place a process to report concerns about the organization's role with respect to AI system throughout its life cycle. So if you read on the right, it says options of confidentiality. It talks about anonymity and all that. So when you are trying to give a concern, you have to be absolutely quiet about it. So you should be able to freely be able to raise concerns. Just like in HR, in a lot of companies, people have a suggestion box. Such suggestion boxes to give feedback about certain issues. So you should be free to give concerns, report of your concerns. So A.2 is all about having a policy. A.3 is about having roles and responsibilities and report concerns. 4 talks about resources for AI. What are the different resources we need? We need data. We need tools. AI is all about data, talks about tool. You may use some amount of tooling. You may use some amount of system and computing resources. Do I need hardware? Do I need networks? Do I need software? Do I need internet? And HR. So these are the 4 types of resources that you will need, which is equivalent to your 7. So what are my different resources that I need has to be called out separately. So as part of the resource identification, organization shall document information and data resources. Then 5 talks about impact through AI, which is similar to your system impact assessment. Look at what does it say? System impact assessment process. What is my process? When do I do my impact? Should I do it every 3 months? Should I do every time I roll back? When do I do my impact assessment? So the organization shall establish a process to assess the potential consequences for individuals or group of individuals or society. And then you have to document the system impact assessment impact to individuals and impact to society separately. So there are some products, please understand, may have an impact only to an individual. If I'm doing drug testing, now especially when you had the COVID testing happening, during the COVID testing, there was a lot of individuals who were impacted separately. For some guys, it might be hair loss. For some guys, it might be voice would have gone away. For some people, weight reductions would have happened. So what impact does it have to an individual, a group of individuals where I'm testing? Similarly, if I'm taking out a product, does it have impact to the entire society? Today, there's a lot of noise happening when you're trying to automate and doing self-driving cars. Taxi guys are always at loggerheads. Today in Bangalore, when you are looking at automating, getting these say helicopters which are coming into service you, or you're looking at trains which are public transport. The moment public transport comes in, the auto guys and the cab guys are all getting very badly impacted. They are saying, it is taking out our livelihood. So what impact does it have to the society has to be explicitly called out as part of your 5.5. So your A2 is all about your policies. A3 talks about internal organization. What is the kind of roles and responsibilities that I have? A4 talks about what type of resources do I need? And A5 talks about what impact does it have to the system, both as an individual and as a society. This is where it gets interesting. In case I have an AI system, which I'm trying to manage, the first thing, please read what does it say. To ensure that the organization identifies and documents objectives. Objectives for responsible development of AI. What is the objective that I'm trying to bring? I'm going to reduce the amount of workload of the AI system. I'm going to reduce the amount of carbon footprint. You need to have objectives of what does your system do. Based on that, what are the different processes that I have to do for responsible system design and development? So A6.6 has two parts to it. First one is talking about management guidance. What guidance do you want to give the system management? What objectives? The organization shall identify and document objectives to guide responsible development of AI and take objectives into account. What is my objective? I want to reduce my carbon footprint by 20%. I want to reduce my human intervention by 5% or 10%. Especially during COVID, when you will not be allowed to touch. So what do? We started with the face recognition. Face recognition has a positive outcome that it will reduce the amount of touch points to you. But at the same time, you should not misuse the photographs that I'm taking. So there's a huge amount of data, of visual data that gets captured of each and every associate. So once my 6.1 is done, then the entire life cycle of my 6.2 is all about life cycle, right from requirement specification to documentation to system verification, validation. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is all about my entire life cycle of my software development. If you are trying to develop your system, which is similar to this that you saw a little earlier in the game, now this entire thing will come into play here. So this entire life cycle of responsible AI comes here. So right from my system requirements, the organization shall specify and document requirements for AI or material enhancement to existing systems. What is my requirement? If I'm going to do development, this will also come into play. So 6.2.2, 6.2.3, if I'm documenting design and development. So first I'm collecting requirements, second I'm doing design, third I'm doing verification and validation. Fourth, I'm deploying, and fifth, I'm operating. So the entire life cycle gets done here, guys. If some of you are part of the software development, and for this, it is important. If you are part of AI, please make sure that you have someone who is capable or at least able to do so, has done some bit of software development for him to understand what each of these cycles are. So you need to understand what are my system requirements, what are my design and development requirements, what are my verification and validation requirements, how do I deploy, How do I operate? Once I've deployed, how do I operate and monitor? And then what is my documentation and recording of events? Very important piece, guys. Over and above this, at the end of the day, after it runs through, are you taking documentation of your logs? Just like you have in your aircrafts, if an aircraft crashes, you have a black box where you're supposed to collect all the information that is there at that point in time. What was my air pressure? What was my fuel gauge? What was the buttons which are on? What was the height? And what was the altitude? What was the speed that I was going at? Similarly, for an AI system, you need to look at all the measures. What was the number of people that I'm working with? What was the number of users that was at? What was the location? What was the number of data points that I was collecting? So other than your entire development, you also have to look at logs. And then A7 is again an important piece with respect to data. Please understand, for any system that you are building, you need to look at your data. What is the data that I need for development? How do I, an enhancement of AI. Second, how do I acquire my data? Acquiring is how do I get it from a third party vendor? Do I get it from, automatically skimming your data? Today, how does Facebook get your data? There's a huge amount of data privacy cases that are running against Meta and against Facebook. Why? Because they collect your data without your permission. Today, your locations is on in all your mobile phones. Every day or every month, every week, I get dashboards which say how long have I used my data for. I'm sure all of you have seen this. I get data every week which says I have used my phone 1.5 hours more than last week. How? Because I got my location on. So nowadays I switch off my location. So the organization shall determine and document details about the acquisition and selection of data. Third is my quality. How good is my quality of data? Is it good to go? Fourth is a term called provenance. Provenance is nothing but origin. Where is my data getting originated from? How do I create my data? So the organization shall define and document a process for recording the provenance of data. Provenance is nothing but how is it created? Is it created by self? Is it created by synthetic data? Is it created by code that I'm writing? How am I getting created and how do I prepare? So 7 is all about yours. How am I handling my data at different points in time in my engagement? And then 8 talks about interested parties. Who are my interested parties? The same as in your A4.2. It could be customer, it could be vendor, it could be authorities. So who are my people? So what is my documentation? How do I report externally? Whom all do I report to with respect to the AI? I need to report to my government agencies. I need to report to my stakeholders, shareholders. So objective is to ensure relevant interested parties have necessary information. So how do I get information to my interested parties? Sometimes I may have suppliers. Sometimes I may have competitors. Sometimes I may have my end users. How do I inform? So 8 is all about having documentation. How do I report? How do I communicate incidents? Just like you have reporting of concerns here, guys, you also have to report your incidents to your third-party vendors or to your suppliers or to your stakeholders. So the organization shall determine and document a plan for communicating incidents to users of the AI system. And then how do I provide information? So 8 is all about providing information to interested parties. 9 is how do I use? Now, if you remember, we spoke a little earlier about the purpose of the system. How am I using my system? Is it being used as per what is the expectation? Am I using it more than required? I bought it for something, but I'm using it for something else. I bought my product to only clean my house. But now what am I doing? I'm also using it for other activities. So the organization shall define and document a process for responsible use of AI. Please use it only for the purpose that you're supposed to use. Now, if you look at my system impact assessment that I brought out earlier, I showed you this document a little earlier. In this case, I was talking about certain purpose. Now, if you notice here, there was something about purpose that I was talking of. This is the intended use. If I don't use it for what I'm supposed to use, there is a problem. So this is exactly what is the expectation that you have to build to the table here with respect to responsible use of AI. What is the objective? Similar to your objective here. You have your objectives in your development. 6.1, if you don't see us, 6.1, objectives for responsible development. Similarly, you have to have an objective for responsible use. There it is talking about development, here is talking about use. I am going to use it only for what it is meant for and what is my intended use. And 10 talks about suppliers and third-party vendors. So this, ladies and gentlemen, was your entire A5 to A2 to A10. A2 talks about policies. A3 talks about internal organization, which talks about what are the roles and responsibilities. A4 talks about what are the type of resources I need. A5 talks about what is the impact to AI. A6 talks about your software development life cycle. 7 talks about data. 8 talks about what is how do you provide information to interested parties. 9 talks about what are the different uses to AI. And 10 talks about what is the requirement with respect to customers and suppliers. Is there any doubts till now, guys? Is it too heavy for you? I'm sorry if I'm crunching a 2-day course into a 1.5-hour course. I'm just wanting to give you a small brief. Hope it is making sense to you guys. Guys, is it making sense?
Yes, sir.
And then NXC is all about objectives. Once you have finished this, if you go back to your standard is a very important document which you can again review on a regular basis. And if you look at your standard, we spoke about all of them with the explanation. So we also did the same thing here. We said 2 was policies, 3 is internal organization, 4 is resources, 5 is impact to AI, 6 is life cycle, 7 is data, 8 is interested parties, 9 is use of AI, and 10 is about third party. So the same thing gets discussed at length till page 58. Then we come down to the objectives. Now, if you remember in your 6.2, we spoke about objectives. What objectives can you have? So this gives you a guideline. You can have an objective with respect to accountability. How accountable do you want the system to be or the management to be? What type of expertise do you want to keep in your company? Just like you have competency, I want my people to be at least 2 years or 3 years in the industry with AI expertise. What is the So if you read this, it says the use of AI can change existing accountability framework, where previously persons would be held accountable. Their actions can now be supported or based on the use of AI. What is my AI expertise with respect to interdisciplinary skill set? Third, again, please understand this is only an guidance. You can decide what type of objectives do you want to set in the table. Availability and quality of training and test data. What is the extent of test data that I'm going to use? What environmental impact will I get to the system? I was doing an EMS audit recently for a company out of Australia 2 days ago. So they have come back and said that they will reduce the amount of paper usage by, earlier it used to be some 50 tons of paper. It has come down to around 5 tons of paper. They have reduced the amount of wastage. Today in a lot of Indian companies, they talk about food wastage per day. So what is the amount of wastage that I have? Reduce the amount of carbon footprint. So that can also be an environmental impact if you feel like wanting to call out. How fair do you want to be? What is the maintainability? Maintainability is but nothing but how long will the system run? We spoke about reliability a little earlier. So my system will run for maybe 200 hours, and it needs to be maintained for maybe 1 hour. It has to be brought down every 200 hours. So if you see, maintainability is related to ability of the organization to handle modifications of the AI in order to correct defects or adjust new requirements. Then with respect to privacy, what is the data how private is my data? How robust is my system? What is the safety and security? And then transparency. So these are 11 points, guys, with respect to your standard that was called out. So these are 11 areas which they spoke of, which requires you to decide whether you really want to use these objectives. And then what are my different risk sources? Where can I get my risk from? Do I have a risk to complexity of environment? Because of doing AI, is there a huge amount of complexity? Is there a lack of transparency? What is the level of automation? Is it only 5%, 10%, 20%? I was doing we were doing an AI program in TechM where we were automating the entire tickets. And then we used to feed the ticket through this particular tool, and it used to classify and categorize them as whether it's an HR ticket, it is a IT ticket, it is a hardware infra ticket, or is it a finance ticket, etc. We brought it up to initial first feed, we brought it from maybe around 25%. Then it became 60, then it became 70, and then we tapered off at 80%. We could not go beyond 80. That is the level of automation. So today there are a lot of your report writing that takes place, or your chat GPTs that are being used. What is the level of automation that it brings to the table? What is the risk related to machine learning? Do I have any risk with respect to machine learning because the scenarios that it brings, or the kind of synthesized data that I'm bringing in? Are there any system hardware issues, any life cycle issues? System life cycle is right from the time of design, development to prototyping to testing, this entire piece that we were looking at earlier. Which part of this life cycle is an issue for you? Do you have an issue in deployment? Do you have an issue in prototyping? Where is the issue for you? And then do you have technology issues? So please understand, guys, again, like I said earlier, this is all indicative. So A is all about clauses. B talks about the implementation guideline. C2 talks about objectives. And C3 talks about the risk sources. And D is nothing but domains where ISO has been called out. And this is again there in your system. So if you look at your ISO standard, this is again something which is not really something that you may want to read, but it just gives you a small indication of where all AI can be placed at. And it integrates with 27001. That is why I insist at the end of the day, please try to read some of these before you come in. So there is a integration to 27001, 27701, and 9001. So this, ladies and gentlemen, was your entire AIMS that you had built to the system. So your entire landscape of your AIMS that I have brought out to you briefly. Any questions before I go to the last two slides? Did it make sense? Was it too heavy? Was it too boring? Too fast?
Boring. Not boring, sir.
So shall I move on?
Sure, sir. Can.
Okay, so this is all about the AI part, guys. So I'm just briefly going to give you a small overview of how you can typically implement this. So once you have learned what this is all about, so this is generally a 3-stage process of how to implement AI. So you first have to do the context setting. And the third one is actually risk treatment, guys. So you need to read that. That's number 3. As my bad, it has been. So 3 is, I think, gap assessment. My bad. So that has been missed out. So you first have to do investigation where you build a context setting, you do a risk assessment, and then you do a gap assessment. You identify the gaps, then you do your documentation, then you do the implementation, close your gaps, conduct an internal audit, and then your certification and closure. So if someone is planning to go for AI, first please do your context setting, which is your 4.1 and 4.2. Make sure that you have your issues called out, make sure your needs and expectations called out. Do a risk assessment. Why? Because we have shown this to you earlier. All the issues need to be fed into your risk, and then you do your gap. Based on this, you'll do your documentation, and then you'll do your implementation. And this is a detailed view, guys, which talks about all the activities and the deliverables. I'm not going to go through each one of them. I'm sure this is something which is self-explanatory. So for each of the areas, there are certain activities and certain deliverables. Like say, for example, for the first one, you'll do planning, you'll do scoping, planning of all the activities. What scope do you want to look at? How do you do a context study? What are your objectives and what is your definition? By the end of the day, then you'll do your project plan, you'll do an AIMS scope, you'll drive your context, you'll build your objectives and your org structure. Similarly, for each of these areas, you'll build this and move on. Any questions on your entire implementation, guys? I generally suggest that you should take at least 3 to 4 months to build your entire AIMS before you go for your certification for 6, 7. Do not go for your 7. The first 4 will at least take you minimum 2 to 3 months. Am I making sense, guys? Once you do your context setting, please do a risk assessment. Based on this risk assessment, please do a gap. Based on the gap, prepare your documents, which is your policies, process, procedures, templates, manuals. Then you'll implement. R&R is roles and responsibilities assignment. Role-based trainings. RTP is nothing but a risk treatment plan, implementation, go live. Performance monitoring, regular monitoring. Then you do a role-based trainings. What is the role of a AI producer, a role of a AI developer, a AI architect? What are your internal audit reports, corrective actions, plans, and MR meetings? And RCB is nothing but a registered certification body as part of your certification. Are there any questions here, guys? Guys, do I move on? Okay. And the last two, okay, I'm not going to get here biased, but generally, if you're trying to go for your prerequisite for an AIMS training, because I have shown certain areas, before you go for an AIMS training, please either get certified on the 27001, 2013 or 2022, because there are a lot of elements with respect to data privacy and security that will be discussed. Make sure that you have knowledge on AIMS, information security or data privacy and risk. Make sure you have adequate knowledge of auditing and experience. And implementation will be good to have. And then I'm going to come down to the last ones with respect to documents. The clause numbers are on the side. So you need to have, as per AIMS, wherever it says shall, you need to have internal and external issues called out. You need to have needs and expectations. You need to have a scope, your policy statement, your roles and responsibilities, your risk assessment and treatment policy, AIMS impact assessment policy, AIMS objectives, and so on and so forth. These are all clause numbers. Please read them through at your own thing, and then you should have these documents. So these are some of the documents that you will build as part of your AIMS implementation. And with this, I come down to the most popular slide. Thank you very much for putting up with me for almost 3 hours and allowing me to complete my deck. And then I throw it open to any questions, and then I hand it over to Subodh. Was it useful to you guys? Can anyone give me a honest feedback? Was it okay? Was it something that you were expecting? Something that you felt was you needed more info on? Please understand, I take a 2-day course and I'm trying to complete this in 3 hours. So I tried to do as much as I could in the 3-hour period. I'm giving it back to you. If there are any questions, do let me know, please. Yes, sir.
On behalf of everyone here, I extend heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Muktesh Murthy for his insightful session on artificial intelligence management systems. His deep expertise and practical insights have shed light on fostering responsible AI governance and ethical practices. Through thoughtful explanations and real world examples, he has provided valuable tools and perspectives applicable across industries. Mr. Murthy's dedication to advancing AI standards and sharing knowledge is truly inspiring. Thank you for your invaluable contribution and for enriching our understanding of innovative AI practices. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are transitioning to the highly anticipated Q&A session. The floor will be open for the audience and have the opportunity to engage directly by turn on your microphones, and you can pose your questions to our resource person. If you want to ask any question, please ask now.
I think they're already tired now. Subodha, any questions? Do you think there's anything? Did it really make sense to you?
Yeah, sir. For me, there's no questions, but I need some clarification, and I'll contact you through all those things.
Sure. Sure. You can ask them to reach out to you, and then maybe you can reach out to me. But I hope it really helped you in trying to understand what AI AMS has to offer. And it is quite a new, exciting standard. So there's still a lot of learning to do. And really hope it helps you in your future endeavors, guys. Yes, sir. All yours. If there's anything else, or do you think that we can call it a day? What do you want to do? Do you wish to have this deck with you, sir? What do you think?
Sorry, sir.
Do you want this deck?
Yeah. Could you please share it, sir?
Okay. All right. So if there's nothing more, do you want me to continue? Do you want to say thank you to all of you and give you some time back?
we draw close to the end of this free webinar on artificial intelligence management system, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all our respectable audience for your active participation and valuable contribution, making this webinar a vibrant pool of knowledge exchange. Before to say goodbye to you all, I would like to take a moment to remind everyone to stay connected with us on our social media platforms. You can follow, like, and comment on our post in Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. By staying connected, you will have the opportunity to expand your knowledge beyond occupational health and safety and also AI. Stay informed about the latest industry trends. Thank you once again for being part of this insightful session, and we hope to continue supporting your journey. Have a nice day and safe journey back home.
So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Subodha. Thank you. Take care. All the best.
Yes, God bless.
Thank you, ma'am.